He went into the mountains to escape, but what he found was a bloodied man lying near a cliff, barely conscious and whispering for help. Michael didn't expect to fall for him. Jack didn't expect anyone to care. But what began as survival turned into something far more dangerous, the kind of closeness forged in fire, silence, and trembling hands. They fought off a wild bear together. Jack's leg was torn, his body covered in blood, and yet his eyes never left Michael's. That night, under a tarp in the rain, with only body heat to keep them alive, something ignited, a touch, a breath, a silent plea not to be alone. But when daylight returned, so did the past, and Jack vanished without a word. Did he run from danger or from what they shared? Why did his touch feel like forever, and his goodbye last only seconds? One stayed behind, one disappeared, but both will never forget that night. I wasn't supposed to be on that trail. Not that day, not in that place. But something about the silence up there, the way the trees swallowed noise, the way the sky pressed down, it felt like the only place left where I could still breathe. So I hiked. Just me, my pack, and the echo of whatever I was trying not to think about. The ridge was narrow, the kind that made you feel like one wrong step could erase you. I loved that, the risk, the aloneness, until I heard it sharp, desperate. Help, somebody please, I froze. At first I thought my mind was playing games, a wind trick, an animal cry, but then it came again, louder, jagged, and real. Help me. I threw my pack down and ran toward the voice. The trees were thick, the slope unforgiving. I cut through low branches, stumbled over roots, slid through loose gravel. Then I saw him. He was lying halfway down a rock face, arms bloodied, one leg bent in a way that made my stomach twist. Dark hair, dirt, streaked skin, and eyes, God, those eyes, wild with pain, green like pine needles in the rain. He looked up at me and tried to smile. Took you long enough. Don't move, I said, dropping to my knees. You're hurt. I need to stabilize you before I get help. Name's Jack, he muttered. 30. Thought this hike would fix my year. Guess not. Michael, I said, wrapping my jacket under his shoulders. Stay with me, okay? He nodded, but I could see the pain grinding at him. His leg was a mess. I tore a strip from my shirt and started wrapping. My hands were shaking, but I pretended they weren't. You hike alone often? He asked through gritted teeth. Often enough, I replied. Risky, says the guy hanging off a ledge. He laughed, then winced. Touch, as I worked, I felt his hand grab my wrist. Not hard, just enough. You're really doing this? He said quietly. You don't even know me. I don't need to, I told him. You're here, you're bleeding, that's enough. His eyes met mine. Something flickered. Trust, hope. I didn't have time to name it. I tightened the makeshift splint, checked his pulse, then lifted him slowly. He groaned, fingers clenching my shoulder, his breath hot against my neck. I've got you, I whispered. He didn't speak, just rested his head against my chest, and for a moment I forgot the fear. Then came the growl. Low, deep, too close. I turned my head and froze. A bear, maybe 30 feet away, watching us. I stopped breathing. Jack stirred. Michael, don't move. The bear took a step forward. I reached into my pocket, found the emergency flare. Snapped it. Flame hissed alive. I waved it wide, shouted, Hey, go. The bear snarled, then turned and thundered back into the trees. We stood frozen. Then I looked down. Jack was staring at me like he'd just seen a ghost. Are you always this dramatic? He asked. Only when I meet someone worth it. He smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes, but deep inside something had shifted. And I knew his wasn't just survival anymore. He tried to sit up straighter but winced. I think I owe you a drink or a dozen. I knelt beside him again. Let's start with getting you out of here. I'm guessing you doesn't come this far. I smiled despite myself, checked the flare again, then looked at the sky. Evening was beginning to stretch its gold across the trees. We had a couple hours, tops, before darkness swallowed the trail. I can get you to a flat spot, somewhere safer to camp. There's a ledge not far down near water. We stay the night. I'll hike for help at first light. Jack blinked. You're staying with me. Of course I'm staying. For a second, the only sound was the wind. He looked away, jaw tight. I've had a lot of people leave when things got hard. I didn't say anything at first, just adjusted his splint again, slowly, gently. Then they weren't your people, I said. He looked back at me, a long stare, vulnerable in a way that made something ache in my chest. And for some reason, maybe the fear, maybe the rush, maybe just the way his hand brushed mine when I helped him to his feet, I knew I wasted walking away from this one. Whatever it was, whoever he was, the ledge I had in mind was only a quarter-mile away, but carrying Jack made it feel like 10. He tried to joke, tried to act like the pain wasn't crushing him, but I could see it in his jaw, in the way his fingers kept tightening on my jacket. The forest thinned just enough to let the sun bleed through. We reached the flat spot right as the last light kissed the treetops. There was a stream trickling nearby, barely a whisper against the quiet. I lowered Jack onto my folded jacket and crouched beside him. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded, eyes shut. "I think my leg hates you," I smiled. "Tell it to get in line." I set up what little shelter I could, a nylon tarp slung between two bent branches, held down by rocks. It wasn't much, but it blocked some of the wind. The ground was cold and hard. I laid out the emergency blanket, then sat beside him, unwrapping a protein bar. Jack didn't speak at first. He was watching the treetops like he was looking for a sign or a way out. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he finally said. "What was me out here alone? I'm not that guy. I'm not the backpacking granola leave off the land guy." I looked at him. "Then why come?" He hesitated. "Because I needed to forget someone." I nodded slowly, then handed him the bar. "You picked a hell of a breakup therapy." He chuckled. "Took it." "Yeah, didn't expect the bonus trauma." "Or me," I added quietly. He glanced sideways, surprised. "No," he said, "especially not you." Silence. "Then you married." I shook my head. "No, you, not anymore." I looked down. "Sorry." He shrugged. "Don't be. He left a year ago, for someone easier." The words hung there like frost. "I don't know why I'm telling you this," Jack muttered, suddenly uneasy. "Maybe because we're strangers on a mountain, and sometimes that's safer than people who think they know you." Jack looked at me for a long time. "You don't seem like a stranger." The air shifted. I felt it in the way his shoulder barely leaned against mine, in the flicker of heat when our hands brushed, reaching for the same blanket corner. I moved first, just a little closer. He didn't pull away. "Thank you," he said after a pause. "For what?" "For not walking past the scream, for staying, for being like this." I stared at the fire. "I wasn't expecting anyone to need me today." "You think I wanted to," he whispered. We didn't look at each other, but the space between us disappeared. A gust of wind blew through the tarp, and I instinctively reached to pull the blanket tighter around both of us. My hand brushed his chest. His breath caught. Neither of us moved. I could feel the rhythm of his pulse under my fingertips. Could feel his body warming against mine. The shiver of pain, and something else entirely. He turned, just slightly, our faces now close. Close enough to feel the heat between us. The air trembled. His eyes searched mine. I didn't know what he saw, but he didn't look away. "I don't know you," he said quietly. "I know," I whispered, "but I'm here." He didn't say anything after that. He just stayed beside me. The rest of the night passed without sleep. We didn't talk. We just listened to the stream, to the trees, to each other's breathing. And in the dark, something wordless began to bloom. The cold crept in sometime past midnight. I could feel Jack trembling beside me. Without thinking, I shifted my arm beneath him and pulled him closer. He tensed for a second, then melted into the warmth, his head settling against my collarbone. I hadn't held anyone in months, not like this, not without expectation, without shame, without pretending. I don't know how long we stayed like that, wrapped in shared silence, our breath making small clouds in the space between us. My hand moved slowly over his shoulder, just enough to remind him, and maybe myself, that we were still here. "Still alive." At one point, he whispered. "I haven't let anyone touch me since the divorce." I didn't answer. I just pressed my forehead gently to his, and let him feel that I wasn't going anywhere. That was enough. We must have drifted into something between sleep and survival. When I opened my eyes again, the sky had begun to pale. A bird sang nearby, sharp, bright. A new day. Jack stirred against me. His face was so close I could count every freckle. He blinked slowly, eyes searching mine. "Did you stay like that all night?" he asked. "Yeah, you didn't have to." "I know," I said. "But I wanted to." He looked like he might say something else, but instead, he just nodded and laid his head back against my chest. And that silence felt like something sacred. The morning after felt fragile, like if we spoke too loud, the night before would vanish. Jack's leg throbbed. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened every few minutes. I boiled water with a tiny stove from my pack and handed him a warm pouch of instant oats. He held it like it was gold. We didn't say much, didn't need to. The silence between us had changed, not heavy, not tense. Just loaded with something neither of us had dared name. "I don't think I've ever watched a sunrise this closely," Jack murmured. "Feels different when your whole body hurts." I smiled. "You're still here, that counts for something." He looked over at me, eyes catching mine. "You stayed all night." "I told you I would." He hesitated. "I didn't believe you." The honesty in that stung more than it should. I nodded slowly and turned my gaze back to the forest. It was quieter now. Even the birds felt like they were holding back. After breakfast, I inspected his leg again. My fingers brushed his skin near the knee, and he sucked in a sharp breath. "Sorry," I said quickly. "It's not the pain," he replied. "It's the everything else." I looked up. His face was a mixture of exhaustion and vulnerability and trust, a deep, unspoken kind that hit harder than anything he could have said out loud. "It's okay," I said gently. "No, it's not," he replied, a bitter laugh escaping. "None of this makes sense. You're a stranger. We're stuck on a mountain. Barely functioning, and yet—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I sat beside him again, close enough that our knees touched. I handed him water. He took it with fingers that lingered just a second too long on mine. Later, as clouds gathered overhead, I secured the tarp tighter. We both knew it would rain soon. The sky had that thick gray weight that made the air hum. I built the fire again, smaller this time, and we huddled near it together. When the first drops began to fall, I moved the blanket higher over our heads. It forced us closer, his shoulder pressed to my chest, his breath brushing my collarbone. Every movement echoed louder in the quiet. "I don't want this," Jack said suddenly. I froze. "But I do," he added, his voice barely audible. I turned my head slowly, met his eyes in the dim light. "Then don't fight it," I said. "I've spent years fighting it. You don't have to with me." That was the moment. Right there, when everything shifted, he leaned into me slowly, cautiously. His forehead met mine, and for a long second, we just breathed the same breath. Nothing more, but it was everything. My hand found his, fingers threading together. His skin was cold. Mine was shaking. Still we held on. The rain picked up, pattering against the tarp. I reached to pull the blanket tighter again, and my arm wrapped naturally around his back. He tensed, then let go of the tension, melting into the space between us. His hand brushed my jaw just once. And then his lips hovered near mine, but we didn't kiss. We just stayed in that dangerous, almost a breath apart, skin to skin, hearts thudding in time. The fire crackled, the storm outside swelled, and inside that fragile shelter I felt something louder than the wind, the quiet, terrifying certainty that I was already falling. The rain had passed by morning, leaving the forest soaked and steaming. Mist curled around the treetops like breath held too long. Jack and I didn't speak much. He seemed quieter, more inside himself. I made tea. He sipped it without looking at me. Something had shifted. Did I do something wrong? I asked eventually. He shook his head. "No, you didn't do anything," but his voice had a weight to it. Like he was already packing something away. I didn't press him. Around noon I climbed the ridge again to try my phone. Still no signal, but I saw movement down the mountain, a flicker of color, a person I couldn't tell. It disappeared before I could be sure. I returned to the shelter, unsettled. Jack looked up as I arrived. "Anything, maybe. I think someone's out there." He tensed. "Who? No idea." We stayed alert for hours after that, just watching the tree line. Then, around sunset, a shadow stepped into the clearing. A man, broad-shouldered, windbreaker, backpack slung tight. His face looked worn by sun and miles, but familiar to Jack. "Jack," the man called out. Jack stiffened. "No, what the hell?" "Jack," the man repeated. "It's me, David." Jack's hands shook. "What are you doing here?" "I've been looking for you," the man said, voice too casual. "Your brother said you were hiking alone. I got worried. Michael." XX. My stomach dropped. Jack didn't move, didn't breathe. "I didn't ask you to come," Jack said, eyes cold now. "I didn't need an invitation," David replied. Then he noticed me. "Who's this?" Jack didn't answer. David took a step forward, narrowing his eyes. "Well, that didn't take long. Don't," Jack warned. David smirked. "You always find someone else to catch you when you fall." I stepped between them. "You need to leave, and you need to mind your place," David snapped. "You think this is anything real? It's a rescue story. Give it 2 days, and hell be gone." Jack flinched. I saw the words land. "David," he said, voice breaking, "you don't get to do this anymore. I know him," David said to me. "You don't. You think this means something. It doesn't. He's good at needing people, until he doesn't." "Shut up," Jack shouted suddenly, louder than I'd heard him before. "Just shut up." David didn't look fazed. "You said I was the one who broke you, but maybe you were already cracked." Jack turned away, breathing hard, shoulders trembling. I faced David. "You're done here." He looked at me with that smug, confident calm I instantly hated. "You'll see. Hell fold the second you stop holding him together." He walked away without another word. The silence after his footsteps faded felt heavier than anything Wed said all day. Jack still had his back to me. I moved toward him carefully. Jack, I need space, okay? He turned, eyes red. No, I mean space from you. It hit harder than I expected. I can't do this, he said. Not when I don't even know what this is. Not when people like him can still find me. You're not him, but I was with him, Jack snapped. And I stayed. What does that say about me, that you survived him? He shook his head. No, it says I let him break me. The sky darkened. So did his face. Maybe I'm not ready for this, he whispered. I swallowed. Do you want me to go? He looked at me, tortured. No, he said, but I want you less. I didn't know what to say to that. I just nodded, stepped back, and let the distance grow. The tarp flapped lightly in the wind between us. I sat outside the shelter that night, rain jacket pulled tight, eyes fixed on the trees. Every so often I heard Jack shift behind me, a sigh, a cough, but no words, and none came from me either. He was still here, but I'd never felt him so far away. It's strange how quickly warmth can vanish, how the place where his body had pressed into mine just hours earlier now felt like a void, like the memory of touch burned colder than its absence. A twig cracked nearby. My head jerked up, just wind. I hated how jumpy I'd become, not from fear of animals, but from the storm still raging in Jack's eyes. The part of me that wanted to comfort him was still there, ready, but it was locked behind this quiet barrier I didn't know how to cross. I thought about what David had said. You think this means something? I wanted to scream yes, that it meant everything. Instead, I just stared at the fire, letting the smoke sting my eyes, pretending it was only that. Jack barely spoke the next morning. His leg was swollen, eyes hollow. The storm between us hadn't cleared, just settled into a cold silence. I packed up camp without saying much. He refused help when I reached for him, using a stick to hobble awkwardly behind me as we made slow progress down the slope. Every step felt like a goodbye. He wouldn't meet my eyes, wouldn't take my hand, not even when the terrain got rough. I kept my distance. If he needed space, I'd give him miles. Midway down, I heard him stumble. By the time I turned, he was on the ground, face twisted in pain. Don't touch me, he warned through clenched teeth. I froze, but the blood soaking through his pant leg said otherwise. You're bleeding, I know. You need help. I don't want yours. The words stung, but I knelt anyway. I'm not leaving you like this. He looked at me, broken and proud and furious all at once. I don't know what you want from me, he whispered. Nothing, I said. Just to not watch you destroy yourself trying to prove you don't need anyone. Silence. Then, let me touch him. I wrapped the wound again, tighter this time. He didn't flinch. When I finished, I sat beside him. We didn't speak. A soft rumble echoed in the distance. At first I thought it was thunder run, till I saw the flash of movement between trees. Two men, not park rangers, not hikers. One of them was the same figure I'd seen before on the ridge. I knew instinctively they weren't here to help. Who the hell are they? Jack asked, already trying to stand. Don't know, I muttered, grabbing my pack, but we're not waiting to find out. He leaned on me this time. No hesitation. We moved too fast for his injury. I could feel his body shaking against mine, but adrenaline carried us to a hidden cluster of boulders. I pulled him behind one, breath shallow. They passed 10 minutes later, talking low. One of them said Jack's name. He closed his eyes. David, he whispered. He must have told them. Who are they? Lawyers, sort of. Private collectors. I owed someone money. Didn't think they'd find me out here. I didn't answer, just pulled him tighter against me. We waited until the voices faded, then moved again. When we finally stopped, we were both soaked in sweat. He was trembling. I poured water into his mouth. He drank greedily. Why are you still helping me? He asked. Because I care. His lips parted. He didn't say anything. That night we found an old hunter's blind wood half rotted, but just enough shelter. I got a fire going. He lay down beside it, exhausted. I stripped off my wet shirt and sat near the flames, trying to warm up. Jack watched me from the shadows. You said you didn't want anything from me, he murmured. I don't, but you're here, risking everything. I'm not doing it for what you think. Then why? I turned to him, because the second I saw you lying on that ridge, I stopped caring about anything else. His eyes glistened in the firelight. He pulled himself upright with a groan and crawled closer. He sat beside me, shoulders brushing, then his head rested on mine. I don't want to be broken anymore, he said. You're not. We stayed like that a long time. Eventually his hand found mine again. We didn't kiss, not yet, but the heat between us had wasted from the fire. I could feel him watching me through the dim light. His breathing had changed slower, deeper, like the weight on his chest had cracked open. "I never meant for you to get dragged into this," Jack said softly. "You don't even know the full story. You don't have to explain," I said. "Not tonight, but I want to," he whispered. "Because for the first time in a long time, I want someone to know everything and still stay." He pulled back just enough to look at me. His hand slid along my forearm, the contact slow, almost reverent. I felt the heat of his palm through my skin, the trail it left behind. "I ruined a lot of things," he continued. "People, trust, myself. David was the worst of it, but I let him in. I let him stay. You don't owe me your pain," I said. "Maybe not, but you deserve more than a half-built version of me." I leaned in, my forehead brushing his. "So let me stay and help rebuild it." His lips trembled. His hand rose to my cheek, thumb skimming the edge of my jaw. Still no kiss, just breath trembling between us. The night outside was still, but something inside me surged. That feeling that if I touched him too much, I might not come back the same. But I touched him anyway. I didn't ask him to be ready. I just let him know I was. And when he fell asleep with his head on my chest, fingers curled lightly against my heart, I knew even if morning brought 100 more storms, tonight we were safe. We woke before the sun. Jack's head was still on my chest, his hand curled over my ribs like head fallen asleep mid-thought. For a moment I didn't move, I didn't breathe, I just let the weight of him hold me down in the best possible way. Then he stirred. His eyes blinked open, green, heavy with morning and something unspoken. For the first time in days he looked at me without flinching. "Morning," he said, voice low. "Hey." We stayed like that for a minute longer, then it broke. His phone buzzed. I didn't even know he still had it dead, I'd assumed, but now, in the weak glow of morning, it lit up with a flicker of signal, just enough to receive a message. Jack sat up sharply, wincing, grabbed the phone. I watched the color drain from his face. "What is it?" I asked. He didn't answer. I sat up. "Jack," he held the screen out. "One message, from David. They are not done. You think you can hide in the woods forever." My jaw clenched. "He's still tracking you." Jack nodded slowly. "I thought it was over. You should have told me the truth. I didn't want you to see me as some runaway loser with a trail of bad debts and worse decisions. So you just let me walk blind into all of this." "I didn't ask you to stay," he snapped. "No," I said, "but you didn't ask me to leave either." He stood, pacing angry, restless, afraid. "I didn't think it would follow me here, but it did, and what?" He spat. "You want to be the hero now, fix me, drag me out of this like I'm a project. That's not what this is." "Then what is it, Michael? It's real," I said. "At least to me," he laughed bitterly. "Real, we barely know each other. We know enough." He stared at me, eyes wild. Then he crossed the room in 2 steps and grabbed my shirt. "I want to believe you," he whispered. "I do, but everyone I've ever trusted has turned me into a version of myself I hate. I'm not them." Then stopped looking at me like I'm worth saving. My hands found his. "You are?" He pulled away. "No, I'm not. I'm tired. I'm toxic. I don't sleep unless I'm drunk or terrified. I've lied to people who love me. I've walked away from better men than you." I didn't flinch. "I've been used and I've used others. And every time I think I'm getting better, I hurt someone new." "Then don't hurt me," I said quietly. "Too late." His silence was the cut. "You already have," I added. He looked like he might cry, or hit something. Maybe both. I stepped back, gave him space. His chest was rising and falling too fast. "I can't do this," he said again. "Not when it feels like it could matter." He turned toward the door of the blind. I followed. "If you walk out now, I won't come after you." He froze. "I've done everything I can to show you I'm here. I'm still here, but I won't beg you to stay." He didn't answer. Then he did. "I don't want to go," he said, "but I'm afraid if I stay, it'll ruin whatever this could have been." I felt the words twist inside me. "I'd rather ruin something real than live with something fake," I said. We stood there, not touching, not breathing. Then he leaned in just enough that our foreheads met, just enough to say good-bye without saying it. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Then he turned and walked into the gray morning. I didn't move for a long time. The world outside the shelter felt larger without him in it, colder, like every inch of space head once filled was now a silent reminder of what I hadn't said in time. The forest was waking around me, birdsong, rustling leaves, the soft hum of wind against the tarp, but inside it was quiet. Still, too still. I sat down slowly, back against the wall, hands gripping my knees. I'd done what I could. I hadn't begged, I hadn't chased, but it didn't feel noble, it felt hollow. I thought of the night we first held each other, the heat of his breath against my neck, the way his fingers trembled when they touched mine. That fragile thing we'd built, moment by moment, breath by breath. Had it ever been real for him, or was it just a flicker, a short-lived spark in a life too soaked in gasoline? I wanted to believe he'd turn around, wanted to believe that behind the trees he was standing there, deciding. But the longer I waited, the more I realized maybe some people don't come back, not because they don't want to, but because they believe they don't deserve to, and maybe Jack was one of them. I left the shelter an hour later. There wasn't a plan, just movement, one foot, then the other. I followed no trail, no markers, just instinct. Just the distant shape of the mountains I didn't feel part of anymore. The air was colder than it had been in days. Or maybe I was. Every tree I passed looked like it could be the one head leaned against. Every sound behind me, a chance had changed his mind. But when I turned no one, the forest stayed quiet. By the time I reached the ranger trail, my legs were shaking. I passed a carved wooden sign and a marker that told me I was back where I started, back on the map, back in the world, but I didn't feel found. A pickup passed me on the road. I raised my hand, and the driver, middle-aged, kind face, slowed down and offered me a ride to the next town. I took it. The heat inside the cab felt wrong, too human, too removed from what I'd just lived through. He asked if I'd been hiking alone. I almost said yes, but then I paused. Started alone, I said. He nodded like he understood. But he couldn't, no one could, not about the man with the tired eyes and guarded laugh, not about how a stranger became my center of gravity, not about the feeling of waking up with someone and forgetting the world was broken. At the small town hospital, they checked my vitals and offered water. I asked if a man named Jack Bishop had come through. They checked. Nothing. I left my number anyway, just in case. 2 weeks passed. No call. No sighting. Not even a ghosted ping from that half-charged phone. I replayed our moments like film, his breath in the cold, his hand on my chest, his voice cracking when he told me he wasn't ready. Every frame vivid, every pause louder than words. Sometimes I thought I saw him in crowds, across streets, in calf windows. But it was never him. I never let myself forget his face, or how it felt to be chosen even briefly by someone who didn't believe he deserved love but gave it anyway. One morning I walked the trail again, the same ridge, the same ledge. It looked smaller now, less dangerous, less holy, but when I closed my eyes I still saw him lying there, blood on his leg, eyes full of something that hadn't existed between us yet. That first moment, that scream for help that changed everything. I don't know if he ever thinks of me, if he stayed running, if he found peace in another city, another man, another version of himself. I don't know if he watches the sky sometimes and remembers how we sat beneath it, touching but not touching. I don't know if he regrets walking away, but I know I don't regret staying, even for that short time. Even knowing it would end. Some stories aren't meant to last. Some are just meant to wake you up. That night I sat at the overlook again, where the trees opened to stars. I didn't say anything, just let the wind move through me, and for a second not long, but enough I let myself believe that if I turned around, I'd see him, just standing there, waiting.